Okay.
Okay, let's start. Welcome to the January 11th, 2022 meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Due to the surge in local COVID-19 cases, this meeting is being held electronically to ensure the safety of all residents and staff. All members of the commission and staff are participating from their homes or offices. For members of the commission, please remember to mute your microphone when you are not speaking and raise your hand if you would like to speak. We'll have roll call votes for each motion this evening, as well as for adjournment. I will ask staff member Janet Catton to call roll call after each motion. I will repeat the motion for the record before we vote. And we'll also repeat who made the motion and seconded. Before we begin, there are a few things I'd like to cover for those listening or watching online. The public has two ways to view tonight's meeting. They can watch via live stream on the city's YouTube channel or listen via phone using the WebEx call-in number. There is no community comment during the meeting tonight. The city is committed to hearing and receiving your input on matters. The public can send in comments to the commission through the commission correspondence web form on our website. The recording of the meeting will also be available to watch on the city's website tomorrow. Go to Watch a Meeting link under I Want To tab on the home page. Thanks in advance for your patience as we work to conduct this meeting online. We hope there will not be any issues, but be assured that we will do our best to continue the meeting as best we can if there are glitches. Thank you to everyone tuning in tonight for your interest in the Parks and Recreation Commission and for our work in the city. So the first item tonight is the call to order. Second item was the roll call. Janet?
Yep. Commissioner Doskach?
Here.
Commissioner Good?
Here.
Commissioner Haas?
Here.
Commissioner McCauley?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Jaw?
Here.
Commissioner Itis?
Here.
Okay.
Thank you. Item 3 on our agenda, approval for the meeting agenda. I will ask for a motion and a second, and then we'll take verbal roll call.
So moved.
Eileen McCauley was
Second.
the second. Mike seconded.
Miller.
Yep.
Janet?
Commissioner Doskach?
Aye.
Commissioner Good?
Aye.
Commissioner Haas?
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson? Sorry, Commissioner Itis, sorry.
Aye. Aye.
Got it, okay.
Thank you. Item 4, the approval of the meeting minutes from December 14th, 2021. I'll ask for the motion in a second, and then we'll do the roll call.
So moved. Second.
Was that
think
Commissioner
Greg-
Haas seconded?
I had a motion by
Yes.
Commissioner Good and a second by Commissioner Haas.
Right.
Okay. Commissioner Doskach?
Aye.
Commissioner Good?
Aye.
Commissioner Haas?
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Itis?
Aye. Item 5, we will not have this evening, if I'm correct. Item 6, reports and recommendation.
Thank you,
Very good. You want-
Chairitis. Yeah, thank you, Chairitis. As we begin this evening, first, I wanted to thank you for your flexibility and patience as we pivot from in-person meetings to back to the virtual environment. As most of us have done this before, Student Commissioner Jha, we welcome her this evening. This will be her first virtual meeting. So we hope the technology works. As a couple of reminders, when possible with your technology, please leave your cameras on. I know Commissioner Good is having some technical issues this evening with his camera, so we understand that. As Chairitis indicated, when not speaking, it would be great if you could mute your microphones so we don't get any additional feedback. And again, to make plans that the City Council has adopted that this virtual platform for January and February. So your February meeting will also be virtual, and they will make a determination on next steps in the month of February. But for right now, January and February will be in this environment. So this evening, as Janet transitions Mr. Neuendorf over to be the presenter, I wanted to introduce Bill Neuendorf. Bill is the Economic Development Manager for the City of Edina. He was attending a recent meeting of the Commission regarding a different development that is occurring near the Perkins site this evening, or last meeting. This evening, he's going to be presenting on a proposed public park on Eden Avenue. So I will turn the presentation over to Mr. Neuendorf, and he can begin his comments.
Great, thanks. Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. As Perry mentioned, I'll run through a brief presentation, and I am not looking for any specific action or any specific decisions tonight, but wanted to accomplish a few things. Number one, just to update where this commission about where we are in a very preliminary planning process, and then seek your general response to what I show you tonight. But certainly, this is just the beginning of the conversation. So after you have time to review things a little bit further, always happy to listen. And with that, let me start sharing some illustrations. Give me a minute to make sure this works properly. Let's see. So if I share the screen. Let's see. It's probably not the right screen. Let me try that again. Let's see, share this one. All right, is that looking more like a presentation?
Yep, it does. Thanks,
great.
Bill.
Awesome, great. So the project that I have tonight is boy, a long time in the discussion phase. This is the city's old public works site in the Grandview district behind Jerry's Foods. It's about a 3-acre site. There have been many conversations over the last decade about this property, what to do with it, how to do it, when to do it. The site is owned by the Housing and Redevelopment Authority of the city, and the intention is to redevelop the vacant site with a combination of uses that add vibrancy and a mixture of uses to the property. And we're currently looking at a combination of 3 different elements: a housing cooperative, which is like a co-op, or which is like a condominium. It's called a co-op. A restaurant or some other similar hospitality user that actually creates a destination for the community, and then a public green space. So this site has been, from back almost, well, going on 10 years now. The Grandview framework that was approved in 2012 envisioned some type of public presence here, in addition to private investment. So those are the 3 types of uses we're currently looking at. That follows a direction set by the City Council for the site. Where we're aiming as far as a schedule is to do preliminary planning. We started last fall, and we'll continue that through this year in 2022. If all goes well, we hope to actually break ground and start construction later this year. And then full build out would take a few years, probably until 2025. So one of the reasons this is taking just a lot of effort and activity is that right now the site's vacant. In order to actually develop it in a fashion where you could build something and put it into some kind of productive use, there's a lot of site preparation that needs to happen. And so the first goal is to start constructing buildable pads that are actually sellable or leasable to the private sector. That includes putting utilities into the site. One of the other improvements we're making in this whole area is improvements to the public right-of-way. So we expect Arcadia to be widened. We're also anticipating that a roundabout is going to be constructed at the intersection of Eden and Arcadia. And so the both of those types of projects will impact this site as we widen the road. That means this parcel will shrink. What I'll do is walk through this initial concept that we have. You are the first group to see this. We just submitted it. It'll go to Planning Commission for their input in a few weeks, and then onto the City Council. So we're still very early in the process. We call this a sketch plan because we're going to have to rezone the property. It's still zoned for industrial uses, and it's clear in our comprehensive plan and throughout the community dialogue that industrial probably is not the best future for this site, but we'll still have to go through that rezoning process. So the sketch plan will allow us to start that conversation. Based on the input that we receive in this process, we'll then redo the plans, update them, and submit a full proposal that starts getting serious as far as dimensions and what those buildings might look like and the real shapes, etc. But at this point, this concept should be considered concept only. We have developed it to a fairly high level due to the challenging nature of the site. You've probably all been by the property. Right now, if you drive by or walk by, it's a 35-foot hole in the ground. So it's that grade change that really makes it tricky. And so as we've started to speak with different developers, we wanted to make sure that the elevations can actually work. So that means we've started to put a little bit of extra effort into this to ensure they can work. What we're currently thinking is the park would be located on the northern third of the property. We're tentatively calling it Grandview Yard. The park would be about 3/4 of an acre in size. The next parcel would be a restaurant. That parcel is also about 3/4 of an acre. The restaurant would be 2 to 3 stories. They'd of course have indoor dining. They'd also have outdoor dining in the front and also some green space for yard games or some type of activity for the restaurant goers. So that's expected to be a private space. And then any restaurant, in order to be successful, has to make sure that customers can park conveniently. So there is a minimal number of parking stalls in the front of the property, but we'll also rely on the parking garage that's in the neighborhood to really support employees and any special events. And then the balance of the property, about 1.5 acres, is anticipated to be used for housing. The Edina HRA is considered a number of different housing types. Since we own the property, we can control it a little bit further. So the city's preference is to see ownership housing constructed there. The private market is certainly building lots of apartments. There's no shortage of apartments, but there is a shortage of for sale properties like condominiums and co-ops. And so that's the direction that the HRA is choosing to go to deliver that type of housing. So from a bird's eye view, this is what the concept is starting to look like. The co-op, of course, on the left side of your screen, and the park right in the center and the center right. Behind the park and the restaurant is that existing Grandview parking garage. That is a public garage, and the it is available for use. There's over 200 parking stalls there. They're fairly well used during the daytime, especially when employees are in the office building. But in the evenings and weekends, it's pretty quiet. There's lots of space available. So you may have heard that we're building a pedestrian bridge to actually connect the parking garage to the businesses on Arcadia, and that will really allow that ramp to be used in the evening hours. So that's the aerial. And then we'll focus in a little bit more on the park in just a moment. But this is a cross section, and this gets a little bit into the weeds, if you will, but I'll walk through what some of these lines mean, and it's really intended to show the challenge here. So the red line on the bottom, let's see, get my cursor. This is the existing elevation. If you walk out there today, you're walking at this level. If you're driving in Arcadia, going to the Starbucks or Devani's, this upper red line is the plane of the existing roadway. And if you're sitting at the Starbucks drive-through, you're parked right about here, and there is a 35-foot drop-off. So we didn't want to build a public space that's hidden. We were concerned about public safety and security if it were in a bowl and hidden. And so we want to raise the grade so that it's visible from the street, accessible, convenient, and welcoming. And over the last 10 years, we've talked about a lot of different ideas. We did 1 or 2 studies that showed underground parking in this area. And upon further review and pricing, there's already over 200 parking stalls next door. We just didn't see the need to build more underground parking. So we'll probably just fill that in and then be able to build a park on top of it. The gray areas in the background, these are actually the outlines of those existing buildings. So this is the roof of the Jerry's office building. This is the roof of the Jerry's hardware and grocery store. That's the elevations there. So it's that's a little bit of the why we're designing it this way. And some of our initial thoughts, and these come out of the memo that I submitted in the packet, but we've heard clearly from the City Council and also the Planning Commission. They're seeking to have a permanent public space that can be enjoyed by residents, employees, guests, the general public. With this arrangement, we're looking to have spaces that are clearly for public use, park, some spaces that are clearly for private use, restaurant, then perhaps an opportunity where if the restaurant has a special event, maybe they spill into the park for that special event. If it's music, movies, whatever it might be, so there might be opportunity to kind of blur that line. A lot of this initial design is really done to accommodate that grade change. And we've made sure that we've applied the standards in the ADA so that someone in a wheelchair or with a baby stroller can navigate the site from highest level to lowest level. Wanted to make sure that there was some flat open spaces so that the park could function. If someone wants to bring a blanket and a picnic, we want to make sure that there's a flat area where they can actually sit and enjoy it. And then we also wanted to reduce the parking, the on-site paved parking areas. This initial concept was prepared by Confluence Design. The city hired them to do this initial layout. They've done work for the city before. They've done work on this project, on this site before. And while none of those past efforts came to fruition, they're very familiar with the challenges of the site. So right now there's a big green canvas essentially for the park. But we've so far have instructed them to keep in mind that there should be space for future park structures. Right now we don't have a budget. We don't have a budget to build it. We don't have a budget to maintain it. So a lot of these types of improvements might come in the future, but we wanted to be thoughtful about what the future might bring. There's spaces where there could be small park structures, space for future park amenities, whether it be a water feature, a place for hammocking, etc. There's places where public art could be installed if that was something we wanted to do. And so far, we've really envisioned this as more of a passive park. So we're not expecting to put a big playground here. We're not expecting to have enough room for softball fields or soccer fields or things like that, but more of a passive space. But that's really where I need your input. So far, we've been meeting with the design team, Confluence, the engineers, and also architects for the restaurant and architects for the cooperative housing building. We've been meeting weekly to try to bring some shape to this sketch and to really make sure that we understand the elevations that would make this possible. Tom Swenson with the Parks Department has been with us on each of those meetings. Chad Milner, our city engineer, has been in most of those meetings to make sure that we're aware of a lot of the infrastructure needs. But what I'd really like to hear is some of your reaction to these concepts. As I mentioned, this is a starting point. We think we're off to a good start, but if we're not, don't be bashful. Let us know. If there's things you think could be added or things that are missing or any other comments, I'll run through these sketches first, but then also just feel free to weigh in and certainly I'll open it up for discussion and questions and comments. But meanwhile, I think I've got 4 or 5 renderings here of different views to help you understand what we have in mind so far. So this image looks to the north. So the Starbucks building is on the top of your screen. The Hilltop restaurant is to the right. And then the railroad tracks and the parking garage to the left. We've got a rendering of the pedestrian bridge. This will be fabricated in the spring, should be finished by the fall. One of the biggest design features is really addressing an obstacle. That is the grade change. If someone is in a wheelchair, they need to be able to get across the bridge and down to the park conveniently and safely. So rather than designing just a dedicated ramp, we thought it might be best to integrate the ramp into the landscaping so they can meander down and then access different levels of the park. So that's what's intended with this kind of snaking sidewalk. That's the ADA access. It would also be designed so that people would want to walk there. It'd be interesting. There could be landscaping, there could be sculpture, there could be planting beds. We don't want to go overboard with the maintenance, so we're really aiming at more low maintenance items for plantings. There could be a lot of visual interest for folks. And this is the open space for games, for picnicking, future music, future movies, those types of things. Then on the northern part of the site, we also have some seating areas that are terraced, again, to accommodate the grade change in a way that is welcoming, create little places that even though you're in a large property, the space that you're at feels kind of private and intimate. The restaurant in the foreground on the left, your outdoor dining, and then this event lawn would be part of the restaurant property. So that's looking to the north. Let's jump to the next one. Now this is looking to the south. Imagine that you're standing on top of the Starbucks building, looking to the south. You've got the bridge, future bridge that goes to the parking structure. Here's the snaking, meandering sidewalk to get down from the highest elevation. One amenity I've asked the developer of the restaurant to keep in mind is to see if they could attach public restrooms to the outside of their building. This is a feature that we've taken from the Centennial Lakes, where we find that sometimes it's not just convenient to have a public restroom. But rather than building a standalone structure or having porta potties, we thought, let's just have the developer attach that to his building, be a separate door, probably a separate heater. The city would have to clean it or maintain it and lock it. But they could build it for us. So far, they're agreeable to that. The lawn space. And then this is on the left side, this is the improved Arcadia Avenue. So right now we're actually widening the street by about 18 feet. And that gives us more room for a lane of parking, for a grassy boulevard that's wide enough to plant trees, for a sidewalk that's about 6 to 8 feet wide, plenty of room for pedestrians. Even if someone's riding their bike, there's still room to pass. These blue features are potential locations of public art. We have 3 of those penciled in. And then similar view, but looking to the northwest. As the view changes, you start to understand the slope. So this portion of the yard would be flat. We still have to make about a 6-foot grade change in order to get down to this level. And so we have steps here. Rather than having a big solid wall, we thought it'd be nicer if there were more of a sloped lawn. Could also be fun if there's ever music or movies, that type of thing. It could be a place to sit and enjoy. Here you can see the terraced areas. We'll have a double row of trees along the sidewalk that leads to the pedestrian bridge. Another art opportunity is shown in front of the restaurant. They would also have some type of sign for the restaurant, I think closer to the parking entrance. Different view looking to the southwest. Again, from a higher elevation, looking at how the new sidewalk, right now there's no sidewalk here. So we put the sidewalk in to the south, we put the sidewalk into the west. Gives the public many different opportunities to access the park. So this sidewalk and this one are at a higher elevation. As you go down the hill, we've got other access points to the park, but you don't always have to climb to one location. You could enter from a low point, a high point, or a midpoint. And then this is almost a street level view, just looking to directly to the west. But again, a different way to look at the slopes and the grades. So this is the midpoint to access the site. There could be a low point to access it on the left. Then a high point up here. So those are the renderings that we have. I'm happy to go back and put any of them back up on the screen. But I'd like to stop talking and start listening now. We're really curious about your initial response, your input, your concerns. What we plan to do is take your comments and wrap them in with comments we receive from the Planning Commission and from the City Council and also from the neighbors. We do have a neighborhood meeting set up in about a week and a half. So we'll bring all those comments together and start fitting those puzzle pieces of comments and see what makes the most sense. As I mentioned, I'll be listening tonight, but also if you have other comments, I know this is the first time that you've seen these. So happy to, if you want to email me or get back to me, I'm happy to accept your comments for the next couple weeks. If I could hear from you by like the 21st of January, that's about a week and a half or 2 weeks, via email or phone call, whatever is convenient for you, happy to do that. Let me go back to an overview, and then, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to listen to any comments or answer any questions.
Yeah, Chairitis and Bill, maybe before we get started on questions and discussion, do you want to quick just touch on the HRA, what it stands for and who it is? I'm not sure. I don't want to offend everyone if they all know, but I also don't want to assume everyone understands what the HRA is.
Yeah. Let me stop doing that. Yeah, so the HRA is Edina's Housing and Redevelopment Authority. It's a separate organization from the city, but it's kind of a sister organization. So it was established back in the 1970s to promote housing and to promote redevelopment. That is taking old sites that were previously used and redevelop them into a more modern purpose. There's 5 members on the board of the HRA, and those 5 members are also our mayor and city council. So the city council tends to have a regulatory framework. They approve things or reject things. The HRA has more of the real estate perspective. So while the HRA doesn't approve zoning changes, since the HRA owns the property, they can guide this redevelopment in any number of directions. But ultimately, when it comes to deciding whether or not to build this or anything like it, whether or not to fund it, whether or not to sell it, lease it, or keep it, that decision rests in the HRA. But those HRA members are also the mayor and council, so they're very familiar with the zoning aspects as well.
Barry, is it okay for questions, you think? Yeah,
Yes,
Bill,
Chair.
I have a few of them. Could you go back to the view from the north a minute?
Happy to. Let's see. That's from the south. That's from the north.
Yeah. Couple questions. On the proposed senior co-op, how many units is the concept?
Right now we're
Roughly.
about 90 units.
Is there affordable housing then in there also?
There is, yeah, 10% of those units would be priced to be affordable in nature.
Looking from this view, when we say the yard is 3/4 of an acre, is that 3/4 including the red route property there? Or is it just the Grandview yard is the 3/4 of an acre?
Oh, the 3/4 of an acre is pretty much from the property line on the northern end
Okay,
to the property line. If we go ahead with
Okay.
this restaurant, this property line. The actual
So
flat
just-
space,
yeah, go ahead.
I wonder if Tom remembers the dimensions. It's like 45 foot by 75 foot. Does that sound about right, Tom?
40 by 120, and then that sloped area, Bill, was 25 feet wide by 120.
There you go. Thank you.
I happen to have my notes here from the last meeting.
So the yard part of it is what, 40% of the total? I'm not real good at math at this time of day.
Yeah, it's probably, yeah, it's around there. It's about half of it.
Okay. So the restaurant, they would have access to the yard. So it'd be like similar to our other parks reservation. It wouldn't be just because we have an event, we can arbitrarily take the park or the yard. So they follow normal protocol, I suppose, in usage.
Yeah, we haven't, great question. We haven't written any contract yet, but the idea would be that if the restaurant wants to have a special event, they would have to get a license or pay rent or something. If it's a community event, like the art festival in Centennial Lakes, there's probably not really rent associated with it. But if they'd want to have, I don't know, a wedding with outdoor wedding area where it's private, we would expect to rent that space to them for a fee. But yeah, there would definitely be a process. It wouldn't just be carte blanche. They'd have to follow the rules. The intention here is to build a public space. And that's the predominant intention.
One question on the widening of Arcadia, 18 feet. since the restaurant that's to the east of there, Hilltop, since they use the street now, certainly on the weekends, to supplement their own parking, would, since now they would gravitate, would we allow parking on both sides? I don't know if 18 feet would give us another, so there'd be parking on both sides of Arcadia?
Yeah, great question. So ideally, we would widen the street even wider to allow parking on both sides. But to do so would, well, we couldn't do it now. We've got existing businesses to work around. We don't want to, it's not our intention to condemn the Starbucks property and take away their parking lot or their drive-through. So we're trying to find that balance. So by widening the western portion of Arcadia today, we can get one row of parking. And then in the future, I would expect that at some point, the office building that's here, they're going to rebuild that at some point. So when that changes, I think that's the time that we can move the easterly curb a few feet and allow for parking on that side. We didn't want to push any of those property owners. It's not our intention to condemn everybody in these areas. But when it's time for change, we'll work with them. And right now, the only parcel that is imminently going to change is this vacant city parcel.
That's my questions for now. So I'll mute and let somebody else.
Bill, I have one question on when I'm looking at the street parking. I'm thinking, it's very nice looking with the trees and the grass, but when it snows, there's not a lot of cutouts there. So now people are walking in the street to get to their cars. You have two cutouts at either end, but there's nothing in the middle. And that just seems a little like dangerous to me.
I'm not clear. There'll be a sidewalk. I'm not sure what you mean by the cutouts.
Well, there's snow covering the grass and where the trees are.
Uh-huh.
And so by cutout, I mean, no snow removals going on except for at either end of the trees. And so if you're parked along there, now you're walking in the street to get to your car.
So she's suggesting maybe one cutout at least in the middle, right, or something. Yeah. Then you kill some space for, if you lose 6 feet probably because you can't park there, but at least people can get access to the street to their cars.
Yeah, we can certainly do something like that.
It's just something to keep in mind because just at night, people walking in the street. It's just that's a busy street because of Hilltop and then now this new restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Rick covered one of my other questions already. And then, do we have to be ADA accessible from the street? Because again, that goes back to my, if you park somewhere in the middle there, it's not really ADA accessible from the street unless you're parking, but I don't know what the requirements are. So that's why I'm asking. Yeah,
good question. And this is kind of a gray area. So the existing hill, if we put a sidewalk there today, it doesn't meet ADA. Just the natural curvature of the world is just too steep. So we're exempted from this being ADA accessible. When you build something like a new bridge and a new sidewalk, that's all man-made. So this portion would have to meet ADA. I think also from a usability standpoint, if we're creating a public space, we'd certainly want to make it welcoming to anyone and everyone, regardless of their physical ability.
Okay. I think that's all I had.
If I could just build off of Eileen's point there, this is Greg. Bill, if you could go to slide 12, thinking of ADA accessibility, I was kind of noticing if we're thinking about the restaurant, I assume is an east entrance there where the outdoor space is.
Yeah, the main entrance would be in this general area.
Okay. Because I'm thinking if anybody's using that Jerry's parking lot, you talked about kind of the ADA being that meandering walkway down there, but then they hit that stairway that if they're trying to use that to get to the restaurant, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to get there.
Yeah, and that's a good catch. So we're trying to find that balance, and I don't know if we're there yet. If you are if you're parking in a handicap spot, these first rows are all going to be handicap spots. If you choose to park over here, we think we can get someone in a wheelchair. Well, we know we can get them through here. Then if their goal is to actually go to the restaurant, not to the park, they could come here and go down and access.
Yep.
It's not the shortest possible route. That's where we've been trying to find that balance, is to provide access while still being convenient and attractive to everyone. One way to do it, we could devote this whole area on the west to just one gigantic ADA ramp, be like the skateboarder's paradise.
Yeah, right.
It would just take so much real estate, and it would only be used for one purpose, and that's just for someone in a wheelchair, to the detriment of everybody else. So we thought, well, what if we can combine those together, make it welcoming, make it accessible for someone using a wheelchair, but making it accessible and welcoming for everyone. So that's the balance we're trying to strike. I don't know if we're there yet, but I think we're getting close.
Yeah. And just a couple other comments. Overall, I like the concept. Thinking about when I first read it, thinking about such a small space, what could be done with it. I like the fact that at least in this conceptual drawing, you've done a nice job of keeping the concrete space on one side and the green space on the other side, right? I was a little concerned it would cut right through the middle of it and you really wouldn't have any kind of private usable green space. So I like that. I like the way it looks here. And then the only other thought I had is thinking about the potential use of, if there was outdoor movies here, on this conceptual drawing, at least on this slide, it looks like, if you wanted to try to utilize that sloped lawn, you'd be thinking about some kind of a mobile screen that would have to come in right to the left of that sloped lawn sign, right, and be kind of looking up towards the green space, just to try to say, can you use that hillside plus the flat part at the top? But I know that's not something that's necessarily set in the plan, but just trying to think forward, where would that fit if you really wanted to make good utilization of all that space? Otherwise, maybe it's all the way in the corner here by that landscape buffer, and you kind of try to utilize the full length of the space going back over the green space. But overall, I think it looks like a good conceptual start for a very small piece of real estate.
Thanks.
I can go next. First off, I would say this looks really great. I've been on the last 2 or maybe 3 projects with Grandview, so I feel like I've seen many options for this space, and I think this is definitely the best I've seen. And I do have a few questions. Some were already answered, but some I just want to build off of. I think that this, from an ADA perspective, it's important to think about the wheelchair, but it's also important to think about the not as easy to walk people. Like, steps are harder, not because they're in a wheelchair, just because they're old or in a crutches or any of the other sorts. So I don't know if it's possible, but maybe even if you change the winter versus summer aspect of the handicaps, because I feel like in the summer it might be easier on a wheelchair to go everywhere, but if it's cold and icy, that's when it's really harder for people who are in a wheelchair or have a harder time walking to get all the way up this really pretty rendering here. My other thought of that is, and you mentioned I call it the stacked building, but I don't know what else they call it, but if there's any, we're utilizing the Jerry's parking lot, are we considering utilizing that parking at all? The underneath of the stacked building, the high right, the one on stilts,
Yeah,
are we
good
talking
question.
at them?
We're always talking with them, but we're not considering using that property. It's privately owned, whereas the Jerry's ramp is publicly owned.
Okay.
So right now we have 100% access to the Jerry's ramp legally and 0 access to the private property. So
I was just thinking again from the, if it's pretty close from the winter perspective, because I mean, Hilltop makes that street really busy starting at like, I mean, basically noon every single day, not just the weekends. I mean, 4 o'clock on, and also because OLG is across there and their carpool starts very early. My other thought is, I think there could be an opportunity to make sure that we do a better job with the crosswalk from the current library slash senior center to this area. Because if there's people living there, I think that that's an opportunity when I saw there's a roundabout, it might be a good opportunity to make sure we're doing a better job with the crosswalks there.
Okay.
To that point, you had mentioned the 90 units and you said there were going to be ownership, but then in that one image, it said it was for seniors. Is this going to be for senior ownership or is this in general ownership?
Yeah, so at this point, we're envisioning an age restricted. So I think it's 55 up would be the ownership option.
Okay. And then in those 90 units, are you assuming one parking spot thing, or are they going to be in the streets too?
Oh, good question. They will not be on the street. They will have 2 levels of indoor private parking in the senior building. I don't remember how many stalls per unit though. It's, one
Right.
or 2 stalls per unit.
Right. That was one of our biggest issues before when we looked at this space. And then the other question I had, I think it might be my last question, would be when we talked before about similarities with this and other restaurants, are we looking at doing a profit sharing like we do today with Red Wagon, not Red Wagon, whatever's like for Amar.
Red River?
Red
River,
River.
thank you. There's a profit sharing. Are we looking at doing that kind of model again?
Not at this point. We don't have a contract yet, but the restaurateur would most likely purchase his property.
Okay.
So that would be his, this project, it's a multi-million-dollar restaurant investment. So he's not willing to make that level of investment and then take a lease where we could kick him out. So we'd probably sell that parcel and there would be no profit sharing.
Okay, I was just curious on that. And so into this, so we widen the road and you mentioned there, it's gonna make more parking. I'm not sure how it's gonna make more parking spots, honestly, just because you're widening the road because they're already parking on that side of the road. But I do see that you've added this on the left here where there's actually like parking spots. So and then that just takes up part of the space there, right? That's not the widening of the road.
That's part of the widening. I mean, right now, cars do park there. If you've ever parked there, do you
A lot.
Yeah, do you enjoy parking there?
No, but I also enjoy Hilltop and I can't
Right.
park at Hilltop. So
Right.
unless I
Yeah,
get
so
dropped off.
right now the curb for the existing road is probably right about here.
Yep.
So when you open your car door, or I mean, like, your left mirror is probably in the driving lane when you park here today. So we want to push that curb to the west so that it's a legitimate, modern parking stall.
Right.
And then rather than just right now that where the curb is, it's just a drop off and a bunch of scrub trees that have grown up. So we want to widen that further. So there'd be I think a 6-foot landscape boulevard, a 6 to 8 foot sidewalk, and then a couple feet buffer. So the public right of way would probably extend from this stone wall all the way to the road. And that way there's room for tree roots, there's room for utility lines, there's room for sidewalks. If we ever want to come in and, the suggestion of little access points for people to walk to their cars and the snowbank, the city would own it, so we could do what is appropriate at the time.
Right. Well, and if it's wider, it'll be safer to walk a little there too. I mean, it might be an opportunity to partner a little with making it easier for those Hilltop customers as well. Because if you were to go to the top of the hill and you are in crutches or old or a wheelchair or anything, getting up that hill to Hilltop already is quite challenging, even on a regular person when it's icy, which by the way, it's here, it's icy a lot. So I think that there's opportunities to kind of partner there because that road gets bad. And it's not just Hilltop, it's the funeral. There's lots of things that cause that issues. So I think this, but I mean, again, I will say 5 times over, like I've been on this project so many times that I can tell you this is the best I've seen it, the best concept of ideas that we've looked at. So it makes me very happy to see. So thank you for your work.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Hey, Bill, I have one more question in regards to parking. I have to admit, I have never used that public parking garage, and I'm not sure how many people use it at night. So I have no idea what it's like at night, but are we looking at that? Because if you're expecting people to park in that, for the restaurant, obviously it's going to involve nighttime. If this smaller parking lot fills up, the street's filled, and we want people to use that, is the lighting adequate? Have we looked at that? Are we going to make any improvements to that to make sure people feel safe parking in that parking garage?
That is a great question, Eileen. So we just finished $700,000 worth of improvements to that parking garage. We redid the lighting, we did security cameras, we added signs in the front so that it's crystal clear that it's a public parking garage, and we added 2 or 3 wayfinding markers. So if there's one behind the liquor store by Devani's where the liquor store meet in that little area. There's one by Walgreens and Jerry's, and then there's one kind of in that alley behind the Walgreens by the pharmacy drive-through. So yeah, we just finished that. The final signs were finished and installed in mid-November, right? I think right before Thanksgiving. So we're feeling really good about that facility.
I'm going to look for them because I honestly have no idea how to get in there.
Yeah, take a look and let me know what you think. Yeah, that public garage has been around since the mid 1980s, and you are not alone in not even knowing that it's back there. So that's why we went ahead and created the signs. They're illuminated, so you'll see them at nighttime. But yeah, we have the same concerns about safety and perception of safety in parking garages. So we just installed LED lights, added cameras, and those types of things.
Well, good job thinking ahead on that.
When I live right by there, so I've seen those lights and the signs, and my kids even notice it, and I think they're really great. There is a bus stop that's right. A lot of people park there, and they get off on the bus on the Holiday side, or they get on the bus on the Devani side. And there's a lot of people who park back there. I think it's also a congestion crazy area with people trying to turn the wrong direction from at a liquor store. There's also an opportunity there for crosswalk safety. It's really crazy right there. So I think that when we think about the safety, if we're adding more people to actually go there, when there's people also trying to walk there from the bus stop, it just might be something to really pay attention to. But I think it's great.
Yeah, thanks. We'll do that.
Bill, I can add to that one too. Commissioner Nelson, as the Hennepin County is looking at replacing that bridge over in that area as well. I think it's 2023. So we're actually looking like that whole intersection from where the bridge is, the turn lanes, the stoplight, the Edina liquor store, kind of how that all functions in there currently right now. So they're looking at that.
I just had one question, which is, or one comment, I guess, thinking about ahead and limitations on the non-public use. My only recommendation is to think that through and work it out in the front end rather than dealing with it on the back end. That's all. And in the sense of like, I don't know if contractually you can do something with that rather than dealing with it with some kind of structure later on that limits the use. That's all.
Yeah, good suggestion. The city has some experience in that, so we do cafe licenses down at 50th and France, and then we do special event licenses in other strategic places. So that's a good starting point, but this is a little bit different. So yeah, we'll definitely want to think through that. It's not our intention for someone to put a big tent there and have a month-long private Oktoberfest party. While that sounds like fun, like we're not looking for a month-long private event. It's more,
Right.
we'll take a month-long public event. That could be fun.
Sure.
Yeah, so there'll be a lot of attention given to that. So thanks for bringing that up.
That's it.
So, Bill and probably Tom also, I just have a question on the sloped lawn. And I understand you've got this grade that you have to work with. So you have to have something there to get the elevation up and down. So my question is around, it looks like a really great thing if you do have music or a movie set up. If there, or the 98% of the time there isn't a movie and music set up, is it going to be usable space? So it's really hard for me to tell the slope of it. And then for Tom thinking what he would think about is it sloped such that it can be maintained so that we can mow the lawn, we can get in there without sliding down, without mowers tipping over and such. So it's just about, is it just having a flat slope with grass the best use for that? And if it is it sloped correctly so that even if you do go and sit in music, you don't throw your blanket out, put your picnic basket down, and 5 minutes later you're in your neighbor's blanket, meeting them. So that's my observation / comment.
Yeah, and we've looked at more tiers, right, Bill? Trying
Mhm.
to stage it to reduce the slope. And in fact, that tier on the bottom edge is an attempt to reduce the slope, but we don't really have all the final measurements yet either. So this is still being developed out, right, Bill? So
Yeah.
we don't have what that slope is currently, but that's a great design consideration.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to get all the way down the road and then realize it's not even useful for sitting, because you're sliding down, it's just too slow. So, and because there's so little space to use there, you'd hate to lose that, the use of that space. So
Mhm.
just forward thinking.
Yeah, thanks. We'll definitely keep that in consideration. And I mentioned the word balance before. This is also one of those areas we're trying to find that balance. But yeah, this in a rough draft a week or two ago was steeper, so we added a wall. I think this is about 2 foot tall. At one point, we thought we'd add half a wall, and then we thought, well, let's just add a whole wall. There's still a lot of development that has to happen. We hear your point about making sure that space is actually usable. We'll make sure that we do that.
Sure. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, Bill, I have one other question. The restaurant owner and then the developer of the co-op. So you've laid out the concept that the park, we get 3/4 of an acre. What type of influence might they have, once you get further down the road to wanting more of that space?
That's a
Mr.
good
Cook?
question. What kind of influence would they have? So,
Yeah.
well, right now the HRA, the city, owns 100% of it. So if we do decide to sell pieces, those sales contracts would be firm in that, the co-op would own their land, the restaurant would own theirs, and we'd own ours. Um, uh, so I mean, between this, so right now I mentioned we're at a concept level. These red lines could shift. In fact, the red line between the co-op and the restaurant, at one point it was over here, then it was over here, and now it's over here. So we're still figuring out where those ownership lines make sense. Um, but as we've been working with the co-op developer, we've also been asking questions like, we think it'd be nice to have music in the park. Would your residents hate it if we had music in the park? um, because we don't want to create a public benefit for one person and then have the neighbors, so disrupted that they put a kibosh on everything. So that there's been a lot of discussions between the restaurant operator, the housing operator, and ourselves, to make sure that those three uses can coexist. And so far, as long as things are normal, like if there's music or a movie and it's done at 10 o'clock at night, that's probably going to be okay. If the music starts at 10 o'clock at night and goes till 2 a.m., I think we'd have trouble. So assuming that there's kind of normal circumstances, I think these uses should be able to coexist nicely.
So the restaurant people would have access to the yard park. So could they have a venue on the property as well, including music? Or
Yeah.
you're probably still pretty early in that, but
Yeah,
see what I mean?
we're still figuring that out. So a lot of it, frankly, comes down to liquor laws. So if you're in the restaurant and you've got a glass of wine, we don't want you wandering throughout the park with your open container. That's why we're thinking there has to be some kind of physical distinction between the private property and the public. Also, if there is a music event, and we haven't thought this out fully, but let's say that you put a stage here, well, maybe we do this whole area as a sitting listening area, and similar to what we've done at the yard at Braemar. Maybe we allow beer and wine in this area. That's for a future decision. We're trying to think of what opportunities might make sense. So that's an example of something we're thinking about, but we haven't written anything down yet.
Also in that light, would the co-op property have access for group events in the yard park?
Just like any other neighbor. Yeah, they,
Okay,
if they wanted to
Just
have
like yeah,
yoga in the
just
park.
like any other, any other park, they would have,
Yeah.
they could have a group activity just
Yeah.
because the proximity is close.
Correct.
One thing I just thought of real quick, is, and I didn't see it here, maybe it's just because it's not drawn up, we should make sure there's bike racks in here. So for those who don't want to drive and deal with parking, that we have some form of racks, and that may actually give another spot for you to cross through the snow. But I do see a lot of fat tire bikers going up and down that dangerous hill because they're crazy.
Yeah. Great idea with the bike racks. We'll definitely do that. And with this, we want to be cautious that we're not creating an attractive nuisance for skateboarders or scooters or bikers or whatever. So in the final design, we'll have to consider those types of obstacles.
Yeah, I'm not looking for like racks so they can like skateboard down on, but you look at 850th in France, people will make anything they want to into a skateboard park. We just have to be realistic here. I would never have thought that they would, but they do. But I just think for the general public who might want to bike there, because the rest of the year when it's not freezing outside, it's actually a very lovely place to bike, so it would be good to have a place they could park their bike and feel safe.
We'll definitely do that.
Any chance of 2 or 3 hole putting green? No, just kidding.
Hey, it's an open pallet.
I know. How about if we could raise donation? No. Any other questions for Bill? This is good. I like this. This is a good, as Corin said, there's been a lot of things in the last 9 years. And I think this solves or satisfies all parts. I think, the developer, he's happy, he gets a nice piece of property. A restaurant would certainly be attracted to that. and we get another little park out of it. So, and a park that we probably need in that area. You know, 3/4 of an acre is better than nothing. So,
Well,
so
thank you.
any other question? Yeah, thank you, Bill, on my part. Just thanks for taking the time. I think it's been a very good job at this point. Very good.
Well, thanks. Well, we'll keep the conversation going and we'll update you in a month or two and let you know what the city council and planning commission have to say. If there's, we hope there's a future for this one. It'd be nice to get something built here after 9 or 10 different tries.
Is it on their upcoming agenda or 2 weeks from now? Do you know the plan?
It goes to planning commission late in January and then city council early in February.
Bill, you mentioned there'd be a meeting in a week and a half, neighborhood meeting. Do you know exact time, date, and where?
We decided to do it virtual just because everything's so wonky these days. We're just mailing out invites. It's January 20th. I don't recall the time off the top of my head. But yeah, we will notify all the neighbors within, I think it's 1,000-foot radius.
Perry, is it possible to have everybody on the park commission included in that notification and that we can get the link?
I can work with Bill on if those logistics work. I'm not sure how quorum rules apply to that. So we'd have to dive into that, but at least we can share the kind of the date and time and maybe work backwards from there, Bill. And then Bill, do you want to remind folks about providing you input by the 21st and just a reminder on that one?
So recognizing that, you know, you've had all of 30 minutes to look at this. If you have other thoughts, feel free to send them. And Mr. Chair, I mean, even ideas like a 2-hole putting green might sound crazy, but heck, why not? We're just dreaming right now, you know? So if y'all have different suggestions or ideas, we are welcome to listen. No guarantees we can fit it in the budget, but if you have anything else, just send me an email by Friday, the 21st of January, and I'll certainly include those in the comments we hear from the neighbors and from planning commissioners.
Okay.
We're including the business neighbors as well as the neighbors. Is that correct? Like
That's
OLG,
correct.
okay, like OLG and those people will have a seat at the table, right?
Yep, I've chatted with several of them already. Yep,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, city policy, any property owner or resident within 1,000 feet is invited to the neighborhood meeting. And we specifically ask our elected and appointed officials as well as staff not to attend. It's not a public meeting. It's not a public hearing. When we've had officials attend those meetings in the past, it really changes the willingness of neighbors to say some things. So we just like to hear from neighbors and then trust the developer to bring that into their concepts.
Very good. Thanks again, Bill. If we're okay, thanks, Bill. Item 6B, I think, is next. Barry, do you want to make an opening comment or statement first?
You know what? Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Bill, also for attending this evening, and the commission members for providing some feedback. I know a lot of you, this has been a long process. Some of you seeing it for the first time, some of you, as you said, seeing it for the 5th time. So appreciate your comments this evening. The next item is, while we kind of looked at the approved plan in December of what's in front of you, tonight is the official setup and takeoff of your 2022 work plan. I would say, since this is your first meeting in January, one of the things that would be beneficial would be to look at the members assigned. You did start working on that in December to ensure that we have proper representation. I did want to apologize to Chair Itis. My spell check changed Itis to items. We do not have a new member at all. It was my error on spell check. So my apologies on that. The official record has been updated though. So including just assigning regular members as well as our 2 student members to that. there was any clarifications or thoughts you had from December, but not a whole lot of discussion tonight. Just want to make sure assignments are correct and you can start plotting your course for your 22 work plan.
Any commissioner want to make a comment, either the one that's the commissioner that's been designated as the lead, or anybody else on any of them at this point?
Yeah, Rick, this is Greg. Just
Yes.
on number one, no big update, but just to let you know that Corin and I will be connecting tomorrow to kind of work the transfer from her leading the first half of that initiative and my kind of taking over the lead here for 2022. And then we will, we've already got some good work done on foundational content that you were involved in as well. So we'll kind of be picking that up and I'll be leading that group in 2022. So just wanted to make that note that we're connecting tomorrow.
Thank you.
And Chair, I apologize. Thank you, Commissioner Good. That just as a reminder, we can have up to 4 regular members on each item and an unlimited amount of student members per item. So if you wanted to keep that in mind as you progress through the initiatives.
I can make a comment about number 2. About a week ago, the director had sent me an email. The email had come from Denny Metzel, the former mayor. And there had been a conversation between the director and him about a nonprofit, certainly at the police, that they use to fund their foundation. And I met with Denny at that time, talking to him about the concept of People for Parks. And there were a few of us, I think Eileen, Mike, and I think Pat did a couple years ago, talked about that. And actually, Denny was very encouraged about us following somewhat their format that they use and are very successful. They've been doing it for, I don't know, 30 plus years. And so we spent a couple hours talking about just the structure, you know, having our own nonprofit entity, the relationship between that entity and the park board. He was very encouraging. Of course, they've been at it for quite a number of years, and probably most of us, you know, either donate or help with that organization. So I feel very good. He and I are going to reconnect, and I've asked Commissioner McCauley to also help on that little project. And so I'll let you know probably in February how that's going. Otherwise, the director has provided a number of spreadsheets and schematics about funding mechanisms and the distribution of those, or the allocation. And I think we'll probably make some type of preliminary display or discussion in February as well. So that's what we're doing a little bit on too.
Chair, I guess on number 2,
Yes.
would you like me to resend out kind of the prior work that staff has put together to the full members of?
Let's do that and
that one?
look at that a little bit more in February, certainly.
Okay.
There's just a lot of, as we all know, there's just going to be a lot of financial activity, I think, certainly the beginning or the embryo this year, and certainly significant parts again in 2023. So I know in talking to the director and even Mayor Metzel, you know, it appears that the park system is going to be in the receiving line for once. I know Matt will be happy to hear that. Any other comments on people's initiatives? You can take them in order or just as you want.
I was just, oh, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I was just gonna say, you can add me to number 3 as well. I think there's room for me there on the volunteer assistance for the parks.
Okay.
And I did want to mention, Charis and the members of the commission, that Commissioner Willett has decided not to seek reappointment. As you know, with his association demands on his schedule, coaching, etc., he was having challenges with attendance prior to, so he has decided not to seek reappointment for the 2022 term. So I know 3 of you are hitting your term limits, so that'll be 4 as we head into the boards and commissions application process. So to keep that in mind about leads and assignments about people's terms. So I know there's 3 of you that are going off on terms, and how we can best use your historical knowledge and input over the next couple of months will be important. So we will need to seek a new lead for Initiative 3.
Any other comments by commissioners, either on their lead position or just in general?
Carrie, I know I'm one of them rolling off. I don't know who else is. I'm assuming that Julie has longer, so she could maybe do it.
Yes,
Right? She doesn't roll
she's
off.
staying. She's staying.
Right. So I don't want to, so I'm not gonna, I can help with that one, but I'm not gonna be a lead since I'm rolling.
Yeah, she leaves, Eileen does, and Mike does. Those 3,
She as in me.
yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
That's okay.
she stays, yeah.
She
Sorry.
as
It's
in,
difficult looking,
I'm gonna
yeah,
speak in first. I'm
looking at
gonna
it,
speak in
yeah.
first person.
No,
She
no.
as in me.
Yeah. I've got 3 papers in, I thought she, so sorry.
I'm good. I'm good. Not offended.
And I'll jump in on Initiative 4. We have 3 members assigned, and staff will kind of be the lead in getting you together as we progress down the referendum continuum for the course of the year to assist with that.
Yeah, I'd like to help on that if I could, Perry. I think because of the tie-in with alternative funding, you know, whatever we do or whatever takes place in that initiative would certainly have a relationship to number 2.
Yeah, so for number 4, I've got down, it was Matt, Greg, and yourself.
Yes, sorry, I was looking at items again on my, yeah, sorry.
Commissioner items.
Yeah, thank you.
You only
Don't
get
let
one
my
vote.
wife. Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm an only child, you know. I think that's it then. Go ahead.
Chair, I think the only thing is that is Student Commissioner Ja still on the call?
Yeah,
She must have dropped off.
She dropped off a while ago.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to work to get her preferences to get her plugged in on this. And I don't know if
yes.
Student Commissioner Prestis, if you've thought any more about your interest in any of these initiatives as well.
Oops. Yeah, a little bit. I'm in 1 and 5 right now. Is that what I'm signed up for? Correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm cool with those for sure. But yeah, whatever you guys need me, if there's any place I can help elsewhere, I'm available to do that too. So yeah.
So then, Chair, I'll contact Student Commissioner Ja and ask
Okay.
her preferences.
Okay, very good. If that's it, we can go to item 7, chair and member comments. So I'll open it up.
Rick, I have one comment I would like to make. Recently, the city council had an emergency meeting about mandatory masking. They decided not to go forward with that, but I just want to make a comment that I hope we can all agree that keeping our schools open needs to be a top priority. And having said that, I feel it's critical that we look at requiring masks at facilities, especially ones where large numbers of people congregate. The ice arena comes to mind immediately. you know, we have basketball games at the Edina Community Center. They have a sign up that says masks are required in this building, and it's my understanding people are complying. There is no enforcement there. You know, people are just wearing their masks, especially with the spread of this Omicron right now and how quickly it is spreading through the community. I believe the community will rise to the occasion to help keep our schools open. So I don't know if we can do a motion, or I just make the comment that I hope the city council relooks at this for the park facilities that where people congregate in large numbers, and really make it a community effort to keep these schools open. That is so important to these kids. They gave up a year of going to school to keep safe, you know, the vulnerable. And I think it's, in my opinion, it's time for the adults to turn around and do the same thing to help them stay in school. So we don't have mental health issues and, you know, losing, you know, their level of learning and that type of thing. I just urge everyone to step up as a community and wear masks where there are a large number of people congregated. And I urge the city council to take a look at the facilities and mandating the masks in the facilities.
Perry, I was gonna, in follow-up to Eileen, what type of disclosure is used like at the gym or ice arena in terms of postings, or is it frequently posted, you know, various places, or is it just one place, or what do we use now? I haven't been to either one. I haven't been to either one of those this fall, so.
Yeah, thank you, Chair and the Commission. What you'll find is when you enter all of our either recreation buildings or enterprise facilities, whether it's the Golf Dome, Edinburgh Park, or the ice arena, you're going to find recommendation on those doors that indicates that masks are strongly recommended. The council did debate this for quite some time on Friday, and ended with kind of the encouragement and plea to the common good of the community to start taking appropriate measures to actually put in those mitigation efforts. They did stop short of a mandate. To be fair, staff struggled with enforcement on that. It was a very large challenge for us in the past at all of our locations, and it is a concern to try to enforce that. We are currently requiring all of our own staff to be masked in public and in common areas. So you'll continue to see that of a staff effort. And I believe today or tomorrow, the signage will be redone to try to draw additional attention to it. As we know, you may walk past the sign numerous times and kind of become possibly and it becomes an afterthought to you. So you'll start to see revised signage pop up, continue to encourage people to try to take those mitigation efforts.
I think we need to explain to people why, and it's to keep the schools open. And I think we need to put that on the signs. And I know the city council is discussing a citywide mandate, and that's not what I'm suggesting. It's in these facilities where the kids are, because the staffing is going to be the problem in the schools. That's probably what's going to happen first, is the staff is going to get sick and we're not going to be able to maintain the schools. People have got to step up and put a mask on, and we should point that out on the signs that it's to keep the schools, help keep the schools open, because nothing's a guarantee. Just my opinion.
I have a comment that has nothing to do with masking. I went to a new facility that if you're out and about, and I had my mask on, Eileen, because it's a soccer requirement based on the soccer ruling. But if you're out and about, they just opened in January. It's I believe it's Plymouth, but they have a dome that's already there, but it's now it says low bandwidth. It says, I don't know if it works or not, but I don't know if you can hear me or not, but it was a dome before, but now it also has a sports facility there. They have on one level, it's the walking track. The main level they have, it's basketball. They were doing pickleball when I was there. And then they have the coolest climbing structure I've ever seen. It's like, I was like ready to go to the very top and race every kid that was there. It was like bigger than I've ever seen. It was really great. And it was all on the same flooring that we put in at Roslyn. So it was just really, really cool. So if you have a chance and you're out, it's right off of 55 and Finbrook or Findale. But if you're out there or if you're a soccer or any sports out by Plymouth, it's worth going and checking it out. It's really, really cool. Not that we're trying to put one in, but it's just from a park educating yourself perspective. It was really cool.
Any other comments, please?
I just have a quick comment that on initiative number 4, I submitted a final sort of report summary related to that initiative today. That was initiative number 4 for 2021, not to be confused with initiative number 4.
I was gonna say, Matt,
I'm already
Thank
done. 2022 is already complete. No, it's not.
Cross that one off the list. Matt's got
Thanks.
it finished.
I'm so
Thanks.
quick.
thank you, Matt. You get the prize for the year. Wow.
Right. That was for 2021. So that would be late.
Okay, we take back the comment, as does Greg. Any other comments, or we'll let Perry proceed?
Thank you, members. And as I'll go through the informational items, I'm not sure if when I'm done, Assistant Director Peterson wants to talk at all about Plymouth. She was able to do a behind the scenes tour of that location. Maybe she can add some context. Just a couple of highlights in your informational items for this month. Obviously, the big one is to plan your calendars and help us spread the word that our spring and summer registration begins February 16th. Again, that'll go live at noon on that day, and then non-residents on the 23rd. So be prepared for that. We've got a number of ideas about, or a number of points in your packet about the arena's attendance, the Braemar Golf Dome. As you can see, kind of that average daily revenue coincides with the implementation of the top tracer technology to gather that interest, especially this early this year. And then also a plug for the Centennial Lakes Winter Ice Festival that will begin at Centennial Lakes, and that is January 16th. So keep your eye out for that. And then thanks to Tom and Brian Dristy and the park maintenance staff, battling some very unusual December weather to get the rinks open and in extremely good quality. So we've got rinks and warming house open at all 12 locations this year. And if you haven't driven past Wooddale Park in the evening, it's a little bit of a Norman Rockwell-esque site. So thanks, especially is it Mike Maudsley on our park maintenance staff for his extra effort and creativity there. Tracy, I don't know if you want to add anything about Plymouth.
Yeah, I just encourage anybody to go and visit. They just, the wing they completed is, they're calling it the active wing, and then they're also doing an education wing, which will be done in June. And that's going to house some of their educational programs, a lot of their park and rec programs, and they're moving a lot of their art programming to that end. So it's just it's a unique facility. I just encourage, it's basically an outdoor playground inside. So it has some really unique, I think, attributes in terms of just kind of flow and how things flow and how they've kind of built it off into wings. And it was their old Plymouth Creek Center, and it's now the Plymouth Community Center. So if you're just looking for ideas or looking to kind of see how how kind of I think a new model for a community center is being done. I think they're a shining example of that, at least in the first phase of their project.
Do you remember the price tag, Tracy?
I think it was 50 million, 56 million, something like that.
You know how big that is, Tracy?
I want to say
How
the
many-
total was, I think around 110,000 square feet, somewhere around there. And that includes some of their old space that they have. They have a full banquet center, and so they've added some components for people that are going to be able to use it when they're doing events. Or the one neat thing they have is it's the first one in the state is they have a sensory room. So if there's kids that need some downtime or having some issues with just sounds and that, they've built a sensory room kind of off of the playground area. That's really neat that that families can utilize.
How did they fund that?
Their fund is out of their general fund.
Is the parking outdoor or underneath or what?
It's regular parking, so they expanded their initial parking. It also houses some of their senior programming. So they're basically putting a lot of that, all of their like I said, a lot of their park and rec programs, seniors, anything active, basketball, pickleball. They've had a lot of technology, so they have a technology wall in the gym that'll will come down and kids can play some games. They just hit a button, and if they want to play dodgeball on the wall, they can do that. And all their fitness spaces and that have technology to do virtual as well. So I think they're trying to anticipate, use, but then if they have overflow or whatever, they can do things, virtually as well. So just a neat facility. I think it'll be maybe worthwhile to wait until, you can go see it now. It's kind of cool, but just when the education wing is done.
Do you know
I
the
have-
acreage at all that it took?
The what?
The acreage it took to have a facility?
No, I don't know the acreage. Again, it was on the site of the Plymouth Creek Center. So they had some room to expand off of there in the domes right there. So the nice thing is it's all in one location. So we'll see if they've added enough parking at the end of the day.
I have one question. Do you happen to know the dates of the snowshoeing at the golf course? Isn't there some upcoming dates for snowshoeing?
Yes, there's one coming up, and I'm trying to remember I think I want to say it's the 17th.
Okay, I'll go on the calendar and look. I just ask because my 3 little grandchildren asked over the weekend because I think they remembered it from last year. So hopefully we'll have some snow by then.
Tracy is correct. It's Monday the 17th, 6 to 8 p.m. And you can register through the golf course.
Good.
And if there aren't any other questions in general on your informational items, the last thing on your agenda is our 2022 meeting schedule. And just a reminder, the February meeting will again be virtual. That's all we have for you this evening, Chair and Commission members.
Okay. Hearing that, I'll ask for the motion and second for
So
adjournment, please.
So move.
Second.
And Janet, would you take the roll call, please?
Commissioner Doskach,
Aye.
Commissioner Good,
Aye.
Commissioner Haas,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Itis.
Aye, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Yep. See y'all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Good night.